Hey, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, what's up, good people? A gracious Sunday to you. It's August 20th, and it's 6:17 in the a.m. I'm reading Daily Reflections, which is the reading from Alcoholics Anonymous. And, man, I'm just going to say, man, it's entitled Toward Emotional Freedom. And I want to talk about that concept of emotional freedom. Many of us are stunted emotionally because we have disingenuous connections. We can't be authentic. And in our lack of authenticity, we put up these facades. And we're like, I want to say soundtracks. You know, that canned laughter that you hear on TV shows. We have these, I want to say canned responses to things. And our interactions are almost robotic because of our lack of authenticity. So if we interact on a level of, I want to say misdirection, misperception, disconnection with others, who can do nothing for us. Just imagine what your connection looks like to God, who does everything for us. And I say this because in knowing that He does everything for us, we want to please Him. So look at just how much more your personal disassociation increases in order to please God. Again, this reading is entitled Toward Emotional Freedom. It starts off by saying, since defective relations with other human beings have nearly always been the immediate cause of our woes, including this is alcoholism, I want to say disease and need for healing, discomfort or disconnect, if you will. It says no field of investigation could yield more satisfying and valuable rewards than this one. And this one means emotional freedom. The writer goes on to say, willingness is a peculiar thing for me in that over a period of time it seems to come first from awareness, but then with a feeling of discomfort, making me want to take some action. And I want to say, if you lack authenticity, okay, hear me good. If you lack authenticity, if there's some kind of disconnect, this emotional disconnect, and a disconnect with self-perception and self-awareness, your action is going to be a knee-jerk response in order for you to get back to your level of comfort. Okay? Hear me out good. For some years, in my early days as a counselor, I worked in collaboration with an agency that taught court-mandated domestic violence classes, and it was primarily for men. And I brought about my connection with this class was that I talked about how the DV situation often fed into substance abuse for women, right? You know, a woman doesn't have any outlet, so she becomes self-abusive in these cycles, right? Now, in order for somebody to be abusive, this is the pattern. The person is dysfunctional. They see themselves a certain way, and it is supported. That vision of themselves is supported by their partner. Say, John Q. Public prides himself in coming home to a clean house and a hot meal. Now, constantly talking about that, you know. So one day, say for instance, he invites somebody over and he gets home and his wife has had a bad day. So the house is not clean and there's no hot meal. And here he is standing with somebody who can witness this. So now he's taken out of the image that he presented himself as. Now, he manages to put up this politeness until his company leaves. And then it's on and cracking. You know, you blew how I saw myself. Now I have to correct this situation, and usually the correction is in the form of some form of abuse. That sound like your relationships and your connections. I see myself as grand and wonderful. You come along and you hold up the mirror of God's truth to me. And I am no longer grand and wonderful. Now I'm going to have to make you pay for that. You know? And then here comes the gaslighting. Here comes the mental and emotional abuse, the isolation, the ostracization, and yes, sometimes physical stuff. But when you're working your 8th step, you have awareness. You're able to look at you. Let me get back to this reading. It says, as I reflected on taking the 8th step, my willingness to make amends to others came as a desire for forgiveness of others and myself. It should be myself and others. I want to reverse that order. Okay. And I'm reversing the order because if I'm examining myself, I can see how I brought about a lot of the actions that I received. Now, I forgive others for their response, but I need to look at myself on why the situation began in the first place. And many of us take ourselves out of the equation on a consistent basis. The writer says, I felt forgiveness toward others after I became aware of my part in the difficulties of the relationship. Isn't that what I just said? The writer says, I want to feel the peace and serenity described in the promises. From working the first 7 steps, I became aware of whom I had harmed and that I had been my own worst enemy. That part there. I had been my own worst enemy. And here's why you are your own worst enemy. You're warring against God. And your battle of I'll show you, I'll get me, started to really look ridiculous to you when you became aware. Again, listen to the battle. I'll show you, I'll harm me. Reminds me of a story of my grandfather who had a really bad toothache. Now, dental care wasn't a priority because it cost money for most folks back in the day. So they did what they could with home remedies. But this particular time, the toothache was just too much. So he decided to go to the dentist. Hear me out. He didn't make an appointment. He decided to do things on his terms. I'm just going to show up and they're going to do X, Y, Z. So he goes to the dentist, and the dentist office was closed. So now he comes back home. He's upset because the dentist office was closed. He's upset because he's in pain. This is what he did. He got out his pliers and pulled his own tooth. That I'll show you, I'll get me mentality. If you had done things in decency and in order, in the proper way, instead of operating on self-will, the outcome would have been a little bit different. The writer says, in order to restore my relationship with my fellow human beings, I knew I would have to change. I wanted to learn to live in harmony with myself and others so I could live in emotional freedom. The beginning of the end of my isolation, my frustration, the tearing down of my facade from my fellows and from God came when I wrote my 8th step list. And the 8th step is about making amends, folks. Making amends. Healing cannot come from avoidance. Avoidance causes gangrene. Avoidance requires an amputation. And the amputation is you cut yourself off from others who love you, and you cut yourself off from God in the process because you begin living and loving the lie that caused the gangrene. That's a heavy message. Living and loving a lie as opposed to healing and making amends.